first thing in the day with the Christ, we're not checking in with a figurative personality or with a being outside of ourself. We check in within ourselves. Christ is sitting right inside the tip of your consciousness, waiting to give you instructions for the day. And it's the same Christ who gave you the 7 keys to the kingdom. And so naturally, when you check in with the Christ, you're given your work for that day. Sufficient unto the day thereof. And you may be surprised that it's Christ's plan for you to do something entirely different than your self-will would have decided. So, for example, here we are, and we're to have a lesson, but it's up to Christ to decide what it will be. It can be one of 7, or it can be an outgrowth of either one of those ideas, whichever we need to develop Christ consciousness. And so we're going to wait a moment and give Christ an opportunity to tell Christ what to do. Whenever there is a oneness, a total oneness, so that the universe is only one eye, and until the universe is one eye, there will not be a clear channel. You can't tune in to the Christ through a myriad growth of diverse ideas. You must have a concept which is graduated to I am I, the infinite. That takes a long doing. But it must be I infinite, then I am connected to the infinite, and the infinite will yield to me that which I must do for that day. What I reap is what I sow. If you recall, there was a balance with the rider on the black horse, and there were some words. He said, a measure of barley for a penny, 3 measures of wheat for a penny, and see you do not harm the oil and the wine. That was Spirit's code to tell us that there is a karmic balance. As you get what you pay for, you harvest only that which you have sown to. And we must now sow to whatever will strengthen our Christ consciousness. We're building with oil and wine, and that's the building of the spiritual awareness. Where is your weak point? Where is your strong point? Let's decide that the mind of you must be strengthened. You have a tendency to use your mind and then the mind of Christ. and you're using the two. And the mind of Christ won't be used by anyone. The mind of Christ has to have free input in order to have a free projection in your life. So let's decide now that we must eliminate one mind. I can't have a Christ mind and a human mind. With my human mind, I'm limited. And not only limited, but I'm in prison. I can't get out of it. And even though it does great things, I find that they all tumble eventually. They all have a limited time span. And I could go on after reincarnation, erecting great structures, but ultimately they must all tumble. They have no continuity in Christ unless they are built by Christ. Now, if I want to save several incarnations, I've got to find a way of yielding to the expression of Christ. I've got to find a way of tuning, so that in the final analysis, that which comes out of me is a Christ activity. It has a connection to the divine mind. Do you realize how many things we have done in our lifetime that have no connection to God? And so we are making the effort that whatever I learn to do must be done with a connection to God to have continuity. I cannot do it with the human mind. Let's finally exterminate all useless activity, all that has a dateline. You've heard it many times. I've used it many times in the past, of the ant climbing a tree. The human mind is that ant. It climbs the tree. And what it knows is all that is within its perspective, all that is within its range. Everything outside of its range, not yet reached, is tomorrow. Everything that it has passed is yesterday. It doesn't remember this, and it doesn't remember that. It lives in the moment. If we live with the human mind, we are basically moment creatures. If we live in the Christ mind, you'll remember that today and yesterday and now are enclosed in one all-knowing eternal truth. And the Christ mind works in eternity, so that your total life is in eternity. And we are preparing for that adventure when we are in eternity forever, knowingly, consciously. With the Christ mind, we're going to live in eternity right this moment. It doesn't live anywhere else. Let's tune to that mind which is independent of all human impulses. That mind which doesn't get on one horse and then another. Let's find the way into reality. Let's tune out the human mind. That's our first step. Tune it out until you are capable of standing without a human thought. That means we're not in the world, we're not thinking of world affairs, we're not in the body, we're not thinking of the body, we're not thinking of anything connected to the body, the human body. We're not thinking of human relationships, we're not thinking of economics. We're clearing out, we're doing a house cleaning, we're turning over all the tables. We're going into the realm of no human thought. In 3 or 4 minutes, you should be without human thought. Open. Meek unto the Father. You're eliminating the basic concept that leads you astray. You're eliminating me. There's no me to ride a red horse or a brown horse or a black horse, a gray horse, or any horse. There's no me at all. All that's left in your consciousness is I. I, the Christ, the divine self, the infinite self. I, the Christ, am one with the Father. Christ will always send you out on the white horse. How old are you? Ageless. Ageless. You're as old now as the day you were born. You're as old now as you'll be 200 years from now. You are ageless. Christ knows no time. Have you reached that place in consciousness? Stay with it. You will reach it. Ageless. I am Alpha and Omega. I am the first and the last. You're opening now to an impartation from the infinite. You left the five-sense world. You remember that lesson Christ gave the woman at the well? You've had 5 husbands, but no more. Those 5 husbands marry you to this world. You're working on the 6th. She was approaching Christ consciousness. The five-sense world is no more. We won't identify anything in the world with the mind of man. It sees through a glass darkly. Everything it sees is fractioned. Don't trust it. Know it to be what it is. It is a counterfeit. The counterfeit 5 senses are interpreting this world in fractions. And your life is being divided into fractions. That's why you change horses. We're getting into wholeness. We're getting into seeing behind the universe in time. Learn that nothing in the world of time is permanent, and therefore is not of God. And develop the capacity and the inner insistence of getting outside the world of time into reality that is enduring. That way we will learn how to live in eternity. There is a tendency to come back into this world. We want to eliminate that tendency. We have lived enough in this world. And maybe now you're getting the idea of what you're to do in this world. The entire idea of this human experience is to walk through the world. To walk directly through it, untouched by it. Untouched by the things that come into the human mind. To emerge from this world, you must pass through it, whether you want to or not. This world is your obstacle, your adversary. It's a path of thorns. There is no person who is exempt from this experience. And it seems like a long experience, a lifetime and lifetimes. But the ant must crawl up that tree. We must go through the earth experience, and in the process we will discover who we are, where we are, what we are to do. This is the toughening course, and you've had enough of it. Only the Christ can lead you through it and out of it. Now it's time to develop your Christ consciousness. Time to put your life into the Christ awareness, to dedicate every moment of your life to finding Christ within. There is not a day that you spend without Christ that is not wasted. Everything now is to develop your Christ awareness. I come quickly. Do you know why I come quickly? Because I'm right here. You don't have to go anywhere. I come quickly because I am the only self present. Who's going to find Christ? You won't find Christ until you lose yourself and find that you are Christ. Peter, put up thy sword. What are you trying to do? You want to defend the Christ? So you don't have to apologize to yourself. Even Peter did not know that the Christ needs no defense. When you find that your human self is a fiction, and you put up your sword because your Christhood needs no defense, and that's all there is of you, you will find that you have discovered the kingdom. But you can't discover it while you believe there's a human you, while you hold on to it, while it has birthdays. Agelessness is the truth of the you that we must find. And it's not so much a finding of Christ, it's a losing of the Antichrist. When you cross out those things which are not you, when you can finally say, there is no me, I don't know where I am, I don't know who is this me that is supposed to, it's an impersonator. There can't be a me and a Christ. We are told to lay down our life to pick it up again. Isn't that the story? To lay down me to pick up I? How subtle. What prevents you from doing it? A million things. The world prevents you from doing it. Everything in the world is a deterrent. Until everything in the world comes under your domination, and it only comes under domination when the Christ begins to be your knowledgeable, realized identity. Then you have no obstacle, no adversary, all the confidence in the world. Let's dwell a moment in the self that I think I am, the self that puts on this body every morning, the self that is counterfeit and pretends to be me. I'm not fooling anymore. This self pretends to be me. Have I wondered why God didn't take care of this self? Or the people out there who seem to be crushed by circumstances? Why should God take care of an illusion? God won't take care of me unless there is an I here which accepts divinity, and then the I of me comes through the me. One consciousness. I am connected to God. The I of you is connected to God. The I of him is connected to God. And therefore we are all one. I. Do you ever reject the I of one person unknowingly? You say, Sally is sick. Bill has a problem. Do you know what you're doing? I do not reject my own omnipresence. And if I am present, is there a problem in my presence? Is there one single problem in the presence of I? Bombs are dropping. The place wherein I stand is holy ground. Words that the Bible utters are the words of Christ. And if holy ground is where I stand, there are no bombs dropping on it. There are concepts which the human mind sees as bombs, which Christ does not acknowledge, because even the bombs are illusions of the mind. We are looking every day at waves of thought, waves of mortal thought all over the universe. In fact, that's what makes the universe, waves of mortal thought. And if we are not spiritually illumined, we accept these waves of thought. They seem so real. Every now and then, one individual comes into a realization that whatever I see, whatever it is, I may not know that these are waves of thought, that these are electrical images, but I know that I am Christed, and wherever I walk is holy ground. Wherever Jesus walked was holy ground. Every mother whose child goes into the war, if she knew how to teach him that his name is I, Christ, she wouldn't have to worry all day and night whether he'd come home. The I, Christ, of him would never leave home. We are dropping human identity. We are dropping a human mind. And every time it crops up to identify something, we just look at it silently. We let it say what it wants to, but it does not enter our consciousness. The Christ mind sees from within. It does not see an external world. It does not see people. It does not see the sunset and the sunrise. Eventually, even the mountains will drop into the sea for you. There is another world out there, a universe of different light than the light of the sun. The inhabitants of that world travel in light bodies. They are all connected to the infinite and fed by the infinite. They are all under divine jurisdiction. God government is the only government in the kingdom of reality. And you join God government as you come into the knowledge that I am that one Christ, which is the Son of God throughout God's kingdom. As long as I keep this little voice still, and I keep tuning into the infinite voice, though I may find it very difficult, my effort will ultimately yield divine results. Be still and know. And what keeps you still? The ability to put the reins on that human self, that self-will that wants to constantly express itself. When you bump into an individual who has attained this level or degree of it, you feel safe, because that person comes into your consciousness in a manner which is not threatening, in a manner which indicates to you some degree of the peace that person feels. That is a person who has attained that level, who never begins a war, is never out to cheat you, always comes to you with a sort of soft love, an awareness of his own Christhood, and therefore an awareness of your Christhood. And you feel it. And when you have this quality in you, others feel it. And you are coming out of the world of mixed up thought, the world which is always tangled, which is always making you an outsider, which is always getting you into a corner. That make-believe world. The seventh letter to the churches is Laodicea. is a world of divine love. A world that whoever enters it is never the same again. When you bask in divine love, that which you feel is communicated to the world around you. There is no judging in Laodicea. Whom can you judge when you see everyone as the living Christ? You don't wait for them to show you they are the living Christ. You know this is the truth of them. Everyone is the living Christ, and love is the law. There's nothing to judge, and your judgment shows that you do not know that the living Christ is in everyone. Your judgment shows that you are fractionalizing the universe again, that you have departed from the infinite. You can see how the infinite cannot work in your consciousness. Always, you take yourself out of infinite law. When you divide life into parts or degrees or good and evil, because good and evil is long past in the infinite life. Everything is perfect. Everybody has. There are no have-nots. And everybody has, whether you see it or not. Because the nature of the invisible is something you cannot see. You cannot see the perfection in each individual, but you must honor that perfection. You honor it by acknowledging it, by realizing it is there, by blessing each individual, regardless of any discrepancy that may appear to you, because you know that you are looking with 5 sense vision. You do not trust your vision. You trust only Christ. Christ who blesses all. Just like the sun, it blesses all. Doesn't matter if you're in a poverty neighborhood or a rich neighborhood. The sun up there doesn't care. You bless all. It's your acknowledgement of the Christ identity of each individual. It is a necessity for yourself. Unless you are blessing all, you have unbalanced the scales. And now you're in the karma. You've set up an imbalance. I can't give pure love to that individual but I can to this individual. Then you're in the karma. Because you don't accept God's word, you only accept what your five senses see. And you cannot do that. Because your five senses will fool you every time. They only know what the cover is on the book. How important is this? Well, if you want to get into the kingdom, that's important. And there's no admission as long as you're in a mortal state of judgment. Nothing that a person does makes the slightest bit of difference to the invisible Christ of your being or the invisible Christ of his being. Because the invisible Christ of your being and his being, regardless of what he looks like in the flesh, is oneself. You only deride, judge, blaspheme yourself when you judge another self, because there is no other self. Every self you're looking at is yourself. Every self. Every self is the Christ, and there are not 10 Christs or 500, there's only one. It's true, you have individuality in every Christ, so that one will appear different than another. But there is still only one Christ. That shouldn't be surprising to those who have been studying oneness and have read books about the realization of oneness. If we know it means oneness, then every one within our range and every one outside of our range is the same one, universally. And when you lay that blanket across the universe and beyond the visible universe, you still have an open line to receive all the blessings of Christ. As you take all within the infinite and you remove conditions, you have the unconditioned infinite, which returns your non-judgment and does not judge you. You purify the universe, and thus it purifies you. We're setting in motion some of the divine facts of life so that we can find no obstacle to our entrance into reality. Reality rejects you unless you have accepted reality. And you won't find perfect human beings in reality, or imperfect human beings in reality. You'll find only the immortal perfection that you must attain in your awareness. And when you attain the mortal perfection, the immortal perfection, then you will find you feel differently. You've got a secret the world knows not of. You've developed the Christ mind. And you make no exceptions. When you make no exceptions in your Christ mind, you are completing your 7 steps. You are worthy to open the book. And I know we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. We haven't covered the 7 steps, but we're covering the 7th. If any of you want an appointment, it starts next Tuesday, all week, from 9 to 5. And also, if any of you want to put any questions up here, write them out and just put them there. And I may discuss them during the class, or I may call you separately, I don't know. But put your questions down. And let's get all the information we've got to get in order to achieve what we must achieve. I want to practice for a moment this delicate relationship between what you think and what you think you think. Because with your human mind, nothing you think is what you actually think. If it's not your Christ mind thinking for you, you are borrowing world thought and thinking that I have this thought. And so during this last war in Iraq, we all thought there was a war going on. And world mind was feeding us this information. I'm not setting up this point of view flippantly. I expect each of you to deal with it and to try to isolate yourself from world mind so that you can come into Christ's thought. Now, the way you do that is with your knowledge that everything in God's universe is under God control. And God being all, everything in God's universe is all there is. Everything that is wrong is in this world, which is under control of the world mind. And we are coming out from under it. Whenever anything happens in this world, it will be reported to you through your thought, and it will be reported falsely, because you must learn how to agree with your adversary. You must learn to see that your adversary is doing your thinking for you. Now, the simplest way to do it is to say to your Christ mind, is this true? And you'll find once you've thought about it and suspected its untruth, that you may get to the point where your Christ mind leads you out of this jungle of world thought. The world has been doing that for centuries, and you have been doing it for centuries without thinking of it, and without knowing that this is the nature of the hypnotism. It will be a refreshing truth to emerge out of the shadow of world thought which everyone else has about a certain subject, the economic situation, the world situation, all of those matters which we are all so concerned about, and see what Christ is thinking. And you must be severe with yourself to do that. You've got to say, this is not a divine thought. Why would God be expressing all these concerns about the world? These are world thoughts. And then they come down into individual thought. I'm going to put a stop to it in me. Now I know everybody is something wrong with them. Everybody feels that something is wrong in their life. It's either their body or their business or their husband or something of that nature. Reflect a moment. And if it's something that you consider serious, then by all means dwell on it and rest there that this thought I have, as much as I can find out the truth about it, if I have this thought that this situation exists in my body or business, how come my thought is so different than God's thought? This adversity that has come to me, to my knowledge, is that the truth that my mind should know? Now don't forget, our fundamental principle was that nothing in God's universe is ever wrong. You must be entertaining an idea about a counterfeit of God's universe. It isn't the universe you want to live in. If there's something wrong in it, you have a counterfeit point of view. Nothing is wrong in God's universe. And now you must go that step further. What gives me the idea that something is wrong? My human mind. And now you must go a step further again. My human mind is not telling me about something in God's universe. Everything in God's universe is perfect. So I look with suspicion on my human mind reporting this bad situation in my world. I will not get out of it until I see that I have got a human mind opinion about something that is not in God's world. And that includes my body, my business, my marriage, my son's body, my child's mind. Everything that reports anything that is not perfect is not only reporting what does not exist in God's world, but it is your mind reporting it. And that's the basis of the problem. Your mind reporting what is wrong. And you are in the wrong mind. How are you going to get back to the right mind, the Christ mind, which says to the blind man, open thine eyes, to the cripple, walk? You've got to learn how, because the secret has been bypassed for centuries, and it was taught by Jesus. You need wisdom. That's to get through this clutter that stands before you. The first step in wisdom is to stand still and not let the human mind bring you its normal sense of things. Don't worry how ridiculous it may appear to you that you're trying to find the truth. Just stand there and insist on finding the truth. My human mind is reporting something wrong, and there's nothing wrong in God's kingdom. Isn't that simple? Now, you're not rid of it just because you said it, but you've got to first establish that thought. There's nothing wrong in God's kingdom. Why is my human mind reporting it? There's the culprit you got to worry about. Because the world mind says that this is the condition. The world mind says human body's got to be imperfect. Now my human mind says mine is therefore imperfect. I feel it. I know it's wrong. I know it. But God says no. Now how are you going to get to the Christ mind which knows there's nothing wrong in your body? You first must be still in the human mind. That's agreeing with your adversary. And your adversary is always the world mind. Now I'm still, I'm quieting the fact that my human mind is telling me something, because I know my human mind is getting it from the world mind. And now I'm quieting it, and the world mind is trying to talk to my human mind, but it's not making any headway for the moment. And as I quiet this mind more and more, Christ is saying, just hold that truth a little longer. Soon you will not be with a human mind. And I will come whose right it is to sit upon your throne. I will bring you the truth of your spiritual body. Now that's your third letter to the churches, the Gospels. Your spiritual body. Don't you realize that your spiritual body is a perfect body? That's the same body that the world thought it crucified in Jesus. Your spiritual body has never been sick. You didn't know you had one. It's time to learn you have. In fact, you're going to have a knowledge of it in order to move into the kingdom, because that's where it lives. It lives in the kingdom of God. It lives in eternity. And you're going to have to live in eternity in your spiritual body, or you won't enter eternity. You won't be cognizant of its existence. Your spiritual body, which lives in eternity, is an eternal body. You've had that body as your body longer than your days on this earth. That body was not born. That body will not die. It has eternally been your body. And that body is in relationship with the eternal Father, and everything in that eternal body of the Father is in your spiritual body. Son, all that I have is thine. When you have an ache, a pain, a defect, try to see that this is the world mind in you posing as your human mind, saying, I have an ache in the body, and you have a spiritual, infinite, perfect body, and at least you're setting up the beginning of thought which is divine. When you take no thought for your body, for your life, you begin to set up this divine thought. Divine thought about your spiritual body will establish eventually the use of your spiritual body, the awareness of your spiritual body, and the fact that you have no other body. Put this down as an absolute truth, the fact that you can depend on. You have a perfect, eternal, spiritual body now. And all that is happening is that in the picture of time, you are under the belief that I have a time body, a body that ages, a body that has defects, a body that gets tired, a body that lives so long. That's world thought. Anything that is not perfect is world thought. You have an ageless, eternal, spiritual body. Well, there are a lot of things can be done with your physical body in this world. Well, we're not depending on the things that can be done with our physical body in this world. We live in the Father's house, in eternity, in the kingdom. And the law of divine life is that everything is under the jurisdiction of God. God governs my eternal spiritual body. I don't have to go to man whose breath is in his nostrils. Temporarily I may appear in this body, but you always have before you the knowledge that a man in this world conquered the appearance of a temporary physical body, and he said, I have overcome the world. And put up your sword, Peter. I don't need to be protected. Pilate, you have no power over me. And then he went on to prove it. That is our shining example. When you develop the awareness that that is truth, you will go forth and do the same. If we look at the 7 letters of the church, to the churches, in the first, we have very briefly discussed Ephesus, which is the Christ consciousness, which is the sum of the 6 added up, which makes the 7th. In Christ consciousness, Son, everything I have is thine. That is the automatic awareness. And everything I have is perfect. So therefore, whatever is imperfect is not real, is not of God. When we move into Smyrna, our divine life, we reject everything that is not perfect in our divine life, because it is a perfect divine life. you will learn that this divine life of mine does not exist in time. It does not change. It does not get sick or better. It is perfect to start with. It is always perfect. It is a law unto itself. And you start to look at the world around you with different eyes, because you cannot look at the world with human eyes. Your life is divine. And when you come to your body, you realize that if I have a divine body, that's the third letter, Pegasus, Pergamos. If I look at anything with human eyes, then I have two bodies. I have a human body and a divine body. So I withhold the judgment of my human body, because in Pergamos we have a divine body which is made by the Father, which is the body of the Son of God. It's always divine. It's always perfect. It's neither male nor female. And it is invisible to human sense. It is untouchable to human touch. Nothing that the five senses can delineate ever see, feel, touch, taste, smell my divine body. Wherever you see me, that isn't me. You cannot see my divine body. And only my divine body can be visible to your divine body. So we are in another world than the one God created. No one can see the divine body of anyone, yet it is the only body that is here. When you come to some measure of the fringe of even awareness, you begin to see what a glorious future we all have. That the future will be what has always been true. The future is the emergence of our use of the divine body in daily life. We'll be in the kingdom of God then, but we are in it now because we are in our divine bodies now. And there will be, in some of us, just a glimmer of awareness of that, but enough of a glimmer for you to say, my divine body is perfect. My divine body does not give birth to children. My divine body doesn't do anything that a human body does. My divine body is here, but it is only detectable by the Christ mind, the divine mind. So you see, slowly we're beginning to emerge into another universe where everything is divine, where everything is eternal, and one part of it depends on the other part of it. But the Christ mind is going to reveal it to you. Can you imagine being in a divine body and trying to use a human mind? Isn't that incongruous? But you want your Christ body. You want the body that is unconditioned, the body that never falters, that never gets tired, that always does God's will, that always does the perfection. And you want that body, but you can't have it with a human mind. They don't function together. So you can see that as you develop the Christ quality, other things become visible to you that remain invisible until you develop that quality. And if you are now beginning to emerge into a divine self, you're going to have a Christ consciousness, a divine life, a divine body, and then you're going to come into the other awarenesses, that you have divine perfection always. And you'll come into Thyatira, the fourth quality which Christ told us we needed. And you find that you now are being lifted into the divine will. That you will only do through divine will ordained acts. That whatever you do is already perfected. That you do not have a human mind and a human will because you have a divine body. You must have a divine will. And so there is a slow escalation in which one is eclipsed and the other shines forth. What is being eclipsed is your self-will. And you must cooperate. That's one of the tough horses to lick. Because sometimes, even though your intention is the best, self-will will erupt, and you'll find yourself in a compulsion. Something looks good to you, you've got to do it. But it's self-will. It's not ordained. And so when you bring it forth and do it, you're not activating your divine body. Because the divine body won't respond. You're activating your human sense of body. And you're licked before you start. So when you develop your sense of human will and are able to grow out of it, you become aware of its tricks. Then as you accept your divine will, you'll find your divine will activate your divine body. And oh, that's a glorious experience, because things that happen that way are in the perfection of God. It is possible and will be happening in your experience someday, because it is already true that when radiation covers the world, when the world of radiation is released through the world mind in this world, that we will walk in that radiation undisturbed. When I say we, I'm not saying all, because some will not have reached the point where they are living under divine will in a divine body. But as you saw through Jesus' activity in divine will in a divine body, he could walk through walls, he could walk on water, he could have walked through radiation, and he could walk through death, untouched. This wasn't done so that we would look at it and say, isn't he wonderful? It was done so that we learned that's in our divine experience when we attain the capacity to release the Father's divine will in us. In Sardis, you learn that omnipresence means that divine power is everywhere. That's the fifth letter to the churches, divine power. Divine power is the power of the divine in the Son of God, the Christ. The Christ is the truth of your being. Divine power is the power of the Christ of your being. And there is no power to oppose divine power. There is no need for you to say, I will this or I will that. Divine power does its own thing automatically when you have removed all belief in other powers. When your experience shows you that this has power and that has power, you haven't removed your belief in that power. And you're going to try to mix powers, whereas divine power is the only power. And the shadow of power that we call power, human power, physical power, is no power in the presence of realized spirit. When I know who I am, below the level of saying it, seeing it, feeling it, when I realize it, bring it to life, when I stand fast, then all other powers lose their so-called power because they have only borrowed from my inability to recognize the true power. Then even radiation becomes no power. And I think you had better listen to this, because if you remember the end of the world, it's not the end of the world. It's the beginning of the kingdom of God. But there is a phase in the breakup of the illusion where radiation runs the universe of man. And each of us must anticipate the world of radiation as a world thought, which is not my thought, but a thought of the world in me. We must come to that level where the world is not thinking in me. We must build up to that level, where all that's thinking in me is the Christ mind. And then the world of radiation is no more powerful than anything that Christ exhibited as a fact. You can't do this humanly. You can't do it through willpower. It's through prepared acceptance of the Christ reality, of your being. And you can break it up at any time that you take one out and say, he's not the Christ or he isn't. It's only through this unanimity of one being that the power of the infinite will release the appearance or the belief of radiation. What seems to be a universal fact will be released by the power of the infinite. When you attain the consciousness that my physical body has no power, physical laws have no power, material laws have no power over me, because I live in the Christ. And the Christ has overcome this world. Nothing this world has is real, even radiation. But it isn't going to be done easily. It's going to be a development from one truth to another, as you escalate these truths in you, until you become certain of what they are and who you are. You won't even know radiation is on this earth. I'd like to look at the power of love. The seventh letter to the churches. You see, God is love. So love must be part of your being. You can't keep it out, or you're not divine. You can't be anything less than love. It must be who you are. It's not a question of anything you want to do. It's a question of you have no choice in it. You are love, because God is love. And if you find it impossible to love your community, your country, your nation, your world, it's because you are part of that appearance of counterfeit which the world accepts and lives in, and you have not found that secret, that the love of God is an infinite expression. And when that expression is your expression, everything is working perfectly because God loves you. How do you bring love into your life? We're not talking of human love. We're talking of love that encompasses no condition, no imperfection, no selfishness, no desire for reward, no human qualities. A love that overflows. If you have felt divine love at times, you've wondered and said, I feel different. I just love everybody. I don't know why. And that fellow over there, I didn't think much of him before, but I even love him today. That's the glimmer of what human love is and what divine love is. You find a oneness even with animals automatically. Some people have it now. Some people are expressing divine love because they're letting it flow without anything standing in the way to block it. Jesus laid down love as the seventh point. He didn't go around loving the Pharisees, that you would notice it. He didn't go around loving Pilate and loving Rome. But you will notice too that there was an awareness in him of the divine nature of his being and theirs, which whenever it came into contact with an individual, they could feel like an invisible generator working. That divine love was restoring every person who was healed to his own reality. That divine love has to become part of your being, an integral part, so that it's the seven qualities are woven together. Like the clothing Jesus wore at the time of the crucifixion, woven in one piece, so that you have these qualities woven in one piece, because each quality makes the other possible. Divine love keeps your divine body perfect. But it helps keep other divine bodies perfect. And as the world begins to find itself in a divine expression, we'll find that our bodies slowly are shown to us as divine. Now then, everything about you is divine. There's nothing that is not divine. You don't hate your mother-in-law because she is divine. The reality of everyone is divine to the divine being. You're stepping out. And the Father who seeth in secret rewards thee openly, because the Father in you rejoices at your recognition of your identity. The Father in you is accepted when you bring out your divine qualities, when you honor the Father, you honor the Son. When you honor the Son, you honor the Father. To be perfect as your Father is to allow the seven divine qualities to function in your illuminated consciousness. The only way you can prevent it is to actively decide that I'm going to be a human being anyway. Then you can prevent it as often as you like. You can become a 666. That's that little number in the Bible, in Revelation. 666. And all that is the reincarnating human, coming back to 6 every time. He's half there. When he's there, he'll be a 112, that's all. We're through with 666. And if we are trying to really be ourselves, we're through letting others be 666 too. We won't hold them in that level. Let's go inside now. Let's find the Christ of our being.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and share our videos. Contact us if you need further spiritual assistance. Our premium audios are now available on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Please search for Master Spiritual Awareness. Thank you.